Hey guys, how are you? In this particular topic, I want to discuss with you my approach to teaching you development. The thing is, PowerShell, in terms of coding and coding practices and concepts, should not be different than other tools that you use to code. If you are already a developer, you may understand some of these approaches. If you're new to PowerShell, new to development, new to the coding platform, and new to essentially automating things, I think it's important for you to be in the right mindset. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Okay? So many applications and many training sessions that are associated with coding and development and introducing you to the coding environment, they'll show you what an if statement essentially does. They will also show you really the benefits behind what a while loop is and what loops really mean, right? They will also show you what case statements and switch statements are about and how they work and how they function. They also go into great detail about the benefits of a module and how modules impact your overall coding structure. They go on these discussions without really explaining thoroughly when you would choose to use a loop, when you would choose to use an if statement, when you would choose to use case statements, when you would choose to use modular development. I think that is a big piece of the puzzle that you need to learn and adapt to early on. It is also unfortunate that many developers that learn to code learn good coding practices as time progresses because they're following other people's lead, but they don't really realize why they're doing what they're doing, the reason why they're approaching things the way they're approaching them. Let me explain what I mean further. You need to understand the business purpose. That's the big thing. Why are you writing the code that you're writing? And furthermore, what system will it impact? Are you going to affect a database? Is what you're writing going to impact, for example, the Active Directory structure? An Active Directory environment, right? Authentication. Are you going to be affecting Linux or Windows system and operating system in general? Also, are you dealing with cloud? Are you dealing with AWS or Azure or Google Cloud? Are you dealing with a DevOps environment and you're asked to basically put together your PowerShell code for the DevOps ecosystem? What's more to this is the fact that you need to learn all this, I believe, in a very, what I consider a organic learning approach. And what I mean by an organic approach is you're learning how to write an if statement, an else statement. You are also learning how to create and construct modules when it's the right time to construct a module. You're learning when to use the case, the switch statements. You're learning when to use while loops and when to use for loops and do loops. You're also learning very clearly when if statements will make a difference and when they won't make a difference. You're also clearly understanding what the business purpose is and what the end result needs to be. Let me tell you something else. Before you're able to write any kind of effective PowerShell code or any other kind of code, even if you understand the business purpose, because you have to, you need to first be an expert on the destination system that you're writing to. And what I mean by that is if you're writing PowerShell code and you're writing to manipulate Active Directory, but you have no idea what Active Directory is. You don't know the difference between OUs. You don't know what a common name is. You don't know what a directory service is in general. You don't know what a distinguished name is, right? You don't know what group policies are. You don't understand essentially what OUs mean and what their OUs relationship with group policies is. If you don't know these things, writing your code to affect Active Directory is going to be useless. If someone says that they just want a new user inside of the Active Directory environment, and you don't understand why and what is going to be the impact of your code in the nature or in the big thing or the big scope of the business. And when you do construct that user in AD, how will that user be related to the business purpose? Also, you will not be able to understand the policies and the procedures that will be affected as a result of what you are doing and the user that you're adding. Also, you won't know to ask the right questions of someone when they ask you to manipulate AD. For example, you might want to know if the user is going to be a temporary user that you're going to be creating, if that user is going to be a developer, if that user is going to be IT support person. What role will the user play? Asking all these questions or knowing the answer to all those questions, understanding the business need, will help you write clear, concise code that suits that purpose. Also, for example, and to further explain what I'm talking about to bring my point home, you cannot write code to a database unless you understand the database. The database environment. If you do not understand how SQL works, you don't understand, for example, how big data works, you really don't know the difference between a table or a database. Or you don't understand what an ETL process is. You don't understand SQL statements in general, or the difference between SQL and transact SQL, or SQL and PL/SQL if given the Oracle universe. You don't clearly understand storage and storage environments and how databases and indices and how data is stored in the database. If you don't understand that clearly, in depth, your code will be all for nothing, because you will probably write poor code, unmanageable, unmaintainable code without any foresight or thought. So, what I'm saying here is, as you're writing your code, don't come up with requirements after the fact. That's an old joke. I'll start writing the code while you put the requirements together. Try not doing that. Try not doing that. You want to understand what you're writing to. You want to understand what system you are affecting. You want to clearly understand the business purpose of what you're going to be doing. And you want to understand in depth the destination system that you're going to be impacting and why. You need to understand that you're going to be affecting the Linux OS, or that you'll be affecting the Windows OS. Right? And you need to understand the Windows OS or the Linux OS, or both, very, very clearly. Or maybe it's not Linux or Windows. Maybe you're writing to the mobile platform, essentially your iPad and your Android systems and the iPhone environment. Maybe you're writing to that. So my point here is, I'm going to teach you clearly how to understand code I'm going to teach you how to understand code very, very organically. Organically, that's the key word there. I want you to understand very clearly that, and naturally you will learn that, yep, if statement would be great here, or a case statement or switch statement would be great here, or this is a good time for a loop, or that this is a great time for me to write a module and what the purpose of that is, or this is how I'm going to write code for the database. Whether it's big data or SQL Server or MySQL or Oracle, really doesn't matter. Or I'm writing something to interrogate the Linux OS, or that I'm writing something to interrogate the Windows OS. Okay? Or that I'm writing to worry about the cloud environment. I'm writing to worry about putting things inside of Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, and before I'm able to write code to affect my AWS environment, I have to learn AWS, or I have to learn Azure, or I have to learn Google Cloud, or something else. You cannot work on your code and learn how to code without really understanding what the destination system is. So you can learn the if-then statements, the while loops, the case statements, the modular coding, all you want, and you may have mastered it. But it'll be all for nothing if you don't understand the destination system that you're writing for and you're writing to, and what the end result is supposed to be of your code. Okay? So my approach here is going to be very much organic in nature. Very much organic in nature. And my purpose here is going to be to help you understand naturally when you should choose to write if statements, if you will, right? When you're supposed to be able to write your essentially your while versus do loops, or something else for that matter, and for you to understand when is a good time to learn case statements or switch statements. Okay? When is it a good time for you to learn and elaborate on code blocks and modules? Very, very clearly understand why you should be using them, and then be able to learn about databases clearly and how they function. Okay? You want to also learn about how the AD environment works, or how the AD environment functions if that's what you're writing to, and why. Understand every scope of it. Okay? You want to also know the destination system you're writing to, whether that be Linux or Windows or something else. You want to learn that in depth. Okay? You also, when you are coding, understand the system you're writing to, even if it's, of course, the cloud environment. You have to understand that clearly. Why you're in the cloud, how you got there, what purpose is your code going to do, and what problem will it solve, right? And if you're writing for the DevOps ecosystem, you want to learn about where your code will fit into the big picture and what purpose it will serve. It will help you write much better, much more functioning code, and decisions to write modules, to be able to manipulate and deal with when to choose when to use case statements, okay? When to do and deal with while statements, and when to be dealing with essentially your if statements and such is going to become a very natural decision for you. Okay? I'm really glad you're here. Can't wait to show you everything.